The Thunder travel into Denver to take on the Nuggets. That starts at 10 p.m. And NBA Christmas Day, 5 big games on ESPN and ABC. After you open presents, sit down on your couch and watch them all. And of course, at 6 p.m. tonight, Sports Center. They'll be talking about the Chargers, and they'll be evaluating Embiid with and without Jimmy Butler. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Amin El Hassan in for Jalen Rose. Amin, I'm so glad you're here, because what we like to do with this segment is look at things that are happening in the world of sports and pop culture and ask the simple question, is this really real? It's time for Is This Really Real? The Denver Nuggets are 18-9. And they are technically kind of sort of leading the Western Conference if you go by win percentage. Is this really real?
They're all right, but they ain't real. Not like that. No. Not best team in the West real, right? So they've made massive upgrades defensively within their own personnel. You rarely see this in the NBA, Jacoby, where they literally didn't change anyone, didn't bring anybody new, but they're just better defensively. And that starts with Nikola Jokic. He's been a lot more solid as far as his rotations, as far as his attention to detail out there, and that's really helped them. The Nuggets are one of the best teams in the West, yes, but the best in the West? Nah, I don't think that's going to last.
They've also dealing with some injuries, and it hasn't really affected them that much. I mean, they've got some of their biggest players out. Will Barton's been out, and now that Gary Harris has been out, but they're still winning games. It's impressive, but I'm going to say it again, and I might be wrong about this, but I don't really believe in this Nuggets team. I just don't see it. I don't see this as a Western Conference Finals team. This maybe they'll win 1 playoff series, but I do not believe that this team wins 2 playoff series.
What? Why? Why the pessimism?
Not a lot of depth. Moving on. Maroon 5. Remember, the Super Bowl is in Atlanta. I'll say it again. The Super Bowl is in Atlanta, and they've decided that Maroon 5 would be the perfect Super Bowl halftime entertainment. And you know how the Super Bowl halftime goes. It's not just one musical act. They always bring out other guests. Well, there are now reports that Maroon 5 is having trouble booking guests for the Super Bowl halftime in Atlanta. Is this really real?
Absolutely real, Jacoby. Absolutely real. Hey, this is called the NFL's chickens coming home to roost. When people see how they've treated other acts trying to do halftime, the backlash that Janet Jackson is still blacklisted in this country for some reason because of what happened a long time ago. No, this is what happens. No one wants to be associated with this. No one wants to be affiliated with this. And guess what? You said it yourself. You're going to have a Super Bowl in Atlanta. All of the great music of different genres of people who came from Atlanta. You're going to pick Maroon 5? Come on, man. Nobody wants to mess with that. Go ahead.
Nobody wants to be associated with Maroon 5. They really don't. This is such a huge mistake. When they made this announcement, everybody on the planet was just like, what are they doing? And now they can't even book a guest. Moving on. After a very difficult start, where it seemed like the Celtics might not be living up to expectations, they have now won 7 straight games and look like one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. The Celtics being one of the top 2 teams in the Eastern Conference. Is that really real?
In the words of the old disco song, it's got to be real. Yo, let me tell you right now, 7 straight wins. You know what happened 7 games ago, Jacoby? They started Marcus Smart and Marcus Morris. And ever since they made that switch, the Celtics have been better. You know why? Because there's too many chefs in the kitchen. They got a couple of chefs up out of that kitchen, and now we got more room to work. This is not a knock on Jaylen Brown. This is not a knock on Gordon Hayward. Both fine players, and if they started, I think they'd be great. The idea is you can't have everybody in the starting lineup be this overly offensive-minded machine. By taking 2 of those guys out of the starting lineup and kind of balancing the rotation, they get more opportunities for everybody, and that's why they're playing well.
It does seem like that. And it once I thought there were 4 elite teams in the Eastern Conference, but now I see it as 2 tiers. I see it as the Raptors and the Celtics, and then there's a gap before you get to the Sixers and the Bucks, and then a gap before the Pacers. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that. I think the top 4 are in the same tier. They all have their own issues and strengths, and everyone's got to navigate them. But then there is a gap, and then there's Indiana, and then there's a massive gap, and then there's the 3 teams that are just going to get a playoff berth because.
Yeah. Then there's the Grand Canyon, and then you get your first round in the playoffs. Jalen Rose thinks that this is Gregg Popovich's last year coaching in the NBA. Is that really real? Is this Pop's last year in the NBA?
I love you, Jalen, but I do not think that is real, and here's why, right? Whoever succeeds Gregg Popovich will be handpicked by Pop. It's not like a regular coaching search that happens when a coach quits or gets fired or whatever. So Pop is going to hand over this thing to one of his disciples. He's not going to hand him him or her, a team that has a low upside and has a possibility of being bad out the gate. He wants this thing to be set up in a way where the next person who comes in will be successful, because he understands the next person who comes in are going to be stepping into some rather large shoes, the shoes of the greatest coach in the history of this league.
Moving on. After a hot start, or a lukewarm start, the Pistons have now lost 6 games in a row. The Pistons being terrible, is this really real?
It's kind of real. It's kind of real because they've had injury issues of their own. Most notably, Ish Smith got hurt about a week ago, and I think that's a big part. He is such a great playmaker for them, and without him, they've really struggled. They've been knocked up. The other part, though, is they had kind of a soft start to their schedule.
Yep.
A lot of home games, low strength of schedule, and now all that's starting to catch up to them, and it's unfortunate it's happening while they're dealing with some injuries.
It feels like 500 is kind of where this team is. Like right now they're 13-13. It kind of feels about right. I think the Pistons aren't terrible, but they're a 500 basketball team that might be the 8th seed, just like they were the year before, That's who the Pistons are until something drastic changes.
Do you think there's a gap between the Pistons and then the other two teams that'll make the playoffs in the East?
No. The Wizards and the Hornets, like who are we talking about now? Like Wizards, Hornets, Pistons, it's all the same.
I have no idea.
It's all the same right now. Finally, The Athletic employs a gentleman by the name of Ross Tucker.
Okay.
And Ross Tucker took out his phone and went to Twitter, just like we all do, except his take was so scorching that we're now mentioning it on a national television show. He tweeted that Taylor Swift is a better musical artist than Prince. Taylor Swift being better than Prince. Is this really real? Uh-oh, I think Amin's leaving.
I wish I wasn't plugged into 100 wires right now. I was about to walk. I won't even dignify this as a response. Twitter, you know what to do.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody tells me that he's got a couple mentions.
But
That's what I think is happening.
How though? Like, how do you arrive at that? This is a man who plays every single instrument better than the people who are the best at playing that instrument. Or I should say played. He's not with us anymore.
He said it was the number of hits that, like, Taylor Swift has more hits. Popular does not mean better. Remember that. Moving on. When we come back, me, Amin, and Method Man will keep it moving.
Your best friend.
Got to give the people